Okay. Yeah, it's kind of a little bit darker than normal here. But anyway, yeah, I thought I'd do the real quick reference to the Sox and Goldman um pasty symbol. Uh, I'll include those in A custom. Yeah, but the pasty symbol thing about the um Sox and Goldman deal about the Mugu Gaipan and what the Mugu Gaipan thing to pasty symbol is to something about the feet thing. Yeah. Um, and the gold digging gold rush days. Uh, like I'd mentioned, I'd heard it before, including some John Wayne movies, but I'm really looking at the Wyatt Earp thing about it and the Earp technology as well as um the thing about the hop sing, which was normally uh, an Oriental chef normally involved with the not necessarily limited to, but the Mugu Gai pan, the pan, yeah, the pan, and the Mugu, almost like the pasty symbol thing, seemingly so of something about the feet, and yeah, and the the pores and how um normal sweat through pores of skin or any fluid buildup, as a matter of fact, um seeping through the pores of the skin of my feet. Yeah. So anyway, I thought I'd mention that real quick because for some reason I was uh, not connecting my own uh attempt to like present it and kind of like was like hung up. Where'd the pasty symbols go? The pasty symbols, yeah. So yeah. So I mean, that is the one symbol after that one experience that I mentioned previously. Uh, not limited to, but something about the George Michael song, "Careless Whisper," and "Guilty Feet Have Got No Rhythm" thing. Truthfully so, and truthfully so, and yeah. So something different between the drums and the feet and the hands, like on the floor, the feet on the floor and the hands on the knees, or the drum set itself, and the guilty feet thing. I think it's just time and a place. Yeah. So in any case, yeah. So in that way, focusing on the symbol, and really, it's kind of like the symbol, like with drums. Drummer being 92, pentagon, a mayor, a future, and so many things about 92 and reserve, reverse, and all that. It had gotten to a point that realizing something about them, you know, maybe identifying and acknowledging beyond a mere thought. Um, is a lot of what I've been focusing on as well. In my memory of my own perception of my own thinking, may or may not be anything more than a memory of maybe distinguishable differences of maybe what persuasion has to do in methods of communication in that way of how persuasive just normal day thinking probably in any case whatever and not really whatsoever anyway. So anyway, I thought I'd throw that in real quick with the the Sox and Goldman thing because there's something about the um Sarbanes and Oxley financial instruments and SOX compliance that I've really been looking at. Some of the information I'm seeing now as compared to then is kind of like distinctly considerably different considering universities um in my mind about that Sarbanes and Oxley universities not necessarily um an issue of assigning a point of origin um if that at all, or how the Internal Revenue Service or auditing or methods, distinguishing whether or not if itemization is ultimately the point at which monetary, if not including three aggregates of like domestic monetary and gross national product of categorization, and what, when, and where aggregate as a categorization, if that's truthfully only a categorization of like maybe either insignificance or just simply not knowing where the word is, or even knowing that it is the word, or what monetary means in the way of like banking, or distinguish the difference between domestic in that way of what categorization really is, and what value is transaction and methods of exchange to process or complete, attaching what obviously ultimately results in participation. Likewise, in the way with gross national product, how gross national product would reflect whether or not if anything of the Sarbanes-Oxley, identifying how taxation code 10, okay, finding it, believing that it even exists, other than just like an alphanumeric thing, is simply whether if it is it important enough to really find. In any case, taxation code 10 and itemization and expenditure, and it's all like 141 and like a USA maneuver thing, a telepathic USA thing, or a telepathic home. It's kind of like a I'm real big on the taxation code 10 thing because of like I-10 and transportation and binary numbers involving sequencing and characterization in sets of 4. And the list goes on and on and on about that, and including sequencing characterization in sets of 4, ultimately getting to the programming and language of how binary numbers are actually used. So anyway, I just thought I'd get that in there because the Sarbanes-Oxley, when it gets to the point of the financial instrument and SOX compliance, some of the information previously was more so associating maybe points of origin of degree of universities, of its origination, some of the information I was looking at as compared to its degree level and practical application. I was looking at that as well. So I mean, like, really, if it really gets, and ultimately that's like a daily transaction at the bank, is ultimately getting to an itemized issue, and sometimes a normal standard, a practice of like a wait period. I don't know if I'd even call it a categorization in religion as purgatory. Yeah, for real, a categorization of purgatory. Yeah, before it's actually identified and processed as itemized and thoroughly identified. Yeah, 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 for real. So I was looking at that as well as the Roosevelt's New Deal Act. The Roosevelt's New Deal Act, being New Deal 64 or New Deal Act being 88. And focusing on 64 because my birth year is 1964, and so much about 64 and American and Israel and Oracle Corporation and a lot of stuff about movies and entertainment law and all that stuff. Anyway, I focus on that because of realizing that something about them, how many aggregates are there, and anything beyond the 3 of like domestic, monetary, and gross national product is the word aggregate at that point. Does aggregate only suggest a mandatory and demanded required participation for the mere sake of Sarbanes-Oxley? If so, I mean, is it really getting to a point that aggregates attaching the word aggregate alone is only attached likewise whenever um, categorization is strictly of enforcement um, as a demanded required participation, or likewise monetary in the way of like it's not limited to an aggregate in a normal day of banking, even on an international level, even involving securities and annuities or even securities exchange commission that would even reflect maybe not necessarily, I don't like always like just throwing it, but at a agreed level, um most people in a bank don't have a level of international financial management or international banking or any FDIC um, or um, Securities Exchange Commission or what usury really is at a banking level or on a large scale. Decide if there's any other terminology at a agreed level, maybe a Deceptive Trades Act, going beyond the two of like aggregates. Um, uh, and if all that international law of having fair use of access easements is specifically not necessarily limited to that, or how many factors of having a right to assemble, and really where does it begin and end? Having a right to assemble. I mean, if it's generalized in such a way as category and something other than maybe the accusation in need of management and not qualified to even participate, but given if there's some managing factors and when and where that is and what the name the terminology really is in every possible way. um yeah, so if it really ultimately gets to itemization and thorough credentials of responsibility of actual participation and not a question of whether or not if managing factors um have thoroughly control. It's almost not funny. I mean, it's so ridiculously not funny sometimes to think that even knowing, even when it's happening, even knowing when it's happening, and really even able to do anything about it, um, or what that might mean in their strength in numbers. It's kind of I've mentioned it before. It's kind of like it's just a serious being born into this world as one individual and leaving this world the same way. It's almost like the strength in numbers originate in singularity, and truthfully so. But having a right to assemble, um, in a way, um, all the prepared, all the preparedness, uh, you know, uh, and time spent directly that way, are discovering that detouring alternatives um, might only be the accusation of supplemental granting grace. And is that going to be um, more than effective enough to maybe use and actually be at the same place, same time? That is not categorized with the same situation or circumstances and still all be at the same place at the same time, or before, during, and after at the same place. Um, yeah, for real. So sometimes when I look at corporate law, um, and knowing that sometimes the difference between public and private, how a building is sometimes designated as a corporate venue, and one of the bigger words in corporate law is entity. Okay, and it's a building, sometimes including the private sector. More so, in my perception, that it's not been thoroughly identified as limited to um, that including public, the building being a public, and providing position in that way with corporate law attached in that way of an entity, an eternal structure, normally involving annuity, and what is involved with like whether annuity is actually a granted given that had been earned from previous generations as compared to maybe a lack of knowing corporate law involves very much annuity, or what a public structure as compared to private structure really means, um, even a participation, or if every public position is considered a attached or detached fixture in real estate based upon ergonomic compatibility, or whether or not if a municipal annuity would be some sort of featured, and I don't know if I'd call it incentive, uh, but yeah, truthfully so. Um, in that way, ergonomically, of municipal annuities, and how fixtures in real estate, and in human capital, um, distinguishes like who's really in control and what compatibility really means, um, in the way of what a fixture is or is not ergonomically, as compared to the entire building of like a corporate venue being an eternal entity, an eternal structure. Um, when so very much about corporate law is about so very much annuity. Some people might not ever look for it, or even maybe even find it, or maybe believe they're it, and I mean, and really not be it at all. Um, in a way of what annuity really is. Uh, Not only the corporate annuity, but as a treasury within itself of what a granted given really is, and the way what annuity has achieved, if it's thoroughly based upon whether it's really a granted given, um, or if it's just a set pattern for every generation. Uh, you know, uh, with maybe just being able to provide a service based upon a preference, um, as a complementary feature for just having something to do. I mean, for real. So in any case, yeah. So yeah. So that's the way I see a lot about corporate law, is whether or not if people know the difference between a corporate venue, a corporate structure, or an entity in the way of a structure or a building, if they even know if it's a corporate law to begin with, whether it's even categorized as an eternal structure of an entity of corporate terminology. Likewise, in addition, is it like public or private? And does public or private separately, distinctly include or not include uh, any difference of what um, annuity is and what position is being provided in the way of what corporate annuity is, or if it's just the structure of a building, maybe providing a position, so maybe earn like a normal standard, um, and miss the whole point of either knowing or not knowing in any case, in corporate venue, corporate law, even a building, whether if it's even possible for a person to find out whether if it's public or private, or if the building itself or the entire human factor. I mean, if you really want to maybe choose what practical application and principle means to human capital, or monopolizing human capital, and what that means all at one place, as like monopolizing real estate truthfully is, in a way of like you know manufacturing, having a right to assemble, even at a conglomerate level of like mega multi-billion dollars of like apartment complexes, and what that right to assemble means ultimately in that way. So I mean, when I decided to take every word as serious as it gets, and not necessarily disregard it. I decided to do something like this and start putting it on YouTube. Um, just for the mere sake and intent of, to include with like my music videos. Um, looking real, anxiously to really get them to my original music. I always like throwing in compact discs with what I've like really always done. But my point is that a lot of new recording equipment and lighting and video equipment and a lot of stuff with live sound and post production. I'm like really looking for some like really serious, you know, people about it, and in music videos in that way. And I have a really a nice lighting setup with my lighting for my music videos. Um, and in any case, yeah. So and some like really good sound. I'm still looking to get a couple more things, but in any case, yeah. So I'm like using a lot of this information for like myself as well as an introduction to like the world of YouTube.com at Wade ASVPRIDDY. Wade, yeah. Um, the ASV thing is a thing about yeah, likewise another name as well as um an acronym abbreviation. Um, and my last name, hey, yeah, pretty PRIDDY. It's like a pretty Texas. It's like a geographic map thing. But in any case, yeah. So in any case, yeah. It's why I'm putting some of this on YouTube. Um, so anyway, yeah. So I'm gonna take a break and I'm gonna go try and eat some breakfast anyway. Talk to you later.